This is our 12th lesson in Old Testament history. We've just finished the life of Abraham, and what a life that was. What a person Abraham is. What encouragement he is to the saints. He had a son, you remember. His name was Laughter, to remind Abraham and Sarah all of their life that they laughed at the promise of God. But he did bring happiness, and so it was finally a good laughter, a sense of honor and a sense of joy in having this boy. There are some sons, some men, that are very aggressive and very loud and very prevalent. Isaac is not one of those guys. Isaac was maybe the original quiet man. His life was wrapped up first in his relationship and his love for his mother, then in his relationship and love for his wife, and then in his relationship and love for his children. He seemed never to really have any uniqueness about him. And for that reason, we really study him more in Abraham's life, as he is the submissive son. This is on your outline. That he is the submissive son that is submitting even to the Father's will of offering him as a sacrifice in chapter 22. Then he's the devoted husband in chapter 24, as Rebekah is brought to him from Padan Aram. And he goes out to meet her, and they love one another, and they establish their home, and he's devoted to her. And then he's the indulgent father in chapter 25 all the way through chapter 28, as we read of Esau, his favorite, and Jacob, his mother's favorite. There's one single incident that he stands alone, separate from his family and separate from his wife and separate from his children, and yet in a way not separate. If you'll turn to chapter 26 of the book of Genesis, we'll look at Isaac and Ishmael. Now this is in the middle of that discussion on your outline of the indulgent father, as he indulges Esau and does not indulge Jacob. But in chapter 26 it reads, verse 1, "Now there was a famine in the land, besides the earlier famine of Abraham's time. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar." Now this is not the same Abimelech that had been in Abraham's day. This is his son, a much younger man. "The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, 'Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I'll be with you and will bless you.'" He says, don't go where Abraham went. Don't make the mistake. He's warning him not to make the mistake that Abraham made. Stay in this promised land. Just abide with me for a while, and I will bless you. He said, "For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and I will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham." He now says, the covenant I made with Abraham, I now make with you. "I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and will give them all the lands. And through your offspring, all nations on the earth will be blessed, because Abraham obeyed me and kept my requirements, my commands, my decrees, and my laws." So Isaac stayed in Gerar. He was on his way to Egypt, because we can find grain down in Egypt. But God says, no, you live on what I give you. You do not seek more in Egypt's land. I've made a covenant with you because I made a covenant with Abraham. I will bless you because Abraham obeyed me. Now verse 7. When the men of that place asked about his wife, he said, "She is my sister." Now that's not even true. With Abraham that was true, with an intent to deceive. She's a cousin. No way a sister. "She is my sister," because he was afraid to say, "She is my wife." He thought the men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah, because she is beautiful. Now he doesn't have faith in God, does he? At least on this occasion. He doesn't believe the word of God back up here, which when God said, "Stay in the land and I'll bless you. I will protect you. I will honor you. Don't make the mistake that Abraham made." And he makes the mistake in exactly the same place to the son of the fellow that Abraham had made the mistake to. And I believe this Abimelech has heard that story, because he doesn't take Rebekah into his house. Verse 8. When Isaac had been there a long time, nobody takes Rebekah to be his wife. I'm sure the word had gone all over the Philistines. If these fellows, if these Jews, if these children of Abraham come back to the land and they say, she's my sister, don't believe them. When Isaac had been in the land a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from his window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. So Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, she's really your wife. Why did you say, she is my sister? He underestimated the morality of these people, didn't he? He underestimated their character. Isaac answered him, because I thought I might lose my life on account of her. Then Abimelech said, what is this you've done to us? One of the men might well have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, anyone who molests this man or his wife shall be put to death. Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold. That's 10,000%. Because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He's already wealthy with Abraham's possessions. Now he's very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, move away from us. You have become too powerful for us. So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. He reopened the wells, and it goes on to talk about the rebuilding that Isaac has done throughout all the land until we get down to verse 26, chapter 26. Meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar with his personal advisor and the commander of his forces. Isaac asked him, why have you come to me, since you were hostile to me and sent me away? They answered, we saw clearly that the Lord was with you. So we said, there ought to be a sworn agreement between us and you. Let us make a treaty, so you'll do us no harm, just as we did not molest you, but always treated you and sent you away in peace. And now you're blessed by the Lord. So they made a feast. Early in the next morning, verse 31, they swore to each other. Then Isaac sent them away, and they left in peace. Verse 34, when Esau, well, that's far enough to read. Isaac is the blessed of God, the one with whom the covenant has been made, but he makes the same mistake that his father made in misunderstanding, in underestimating the morality of the people among whom he lived. Isaac is a quiet man, but he bore 2 sons, and neither one of them are quiet men. Let's read of that, beginning in chapter 25, verse 19, as we pick up what we are now going to call the life of Jacob. Abraham was a prominent man. Isaac was not. But his son Jacob becomes the prominent man in the story recorded in the book of Genesis. In chapter 25, verse 19, I read, this is the account of Abraham's son Isaac. Now it's interesting in the book of Genesis as you read it, that each time you read a statement like that, this is the account of, or this is the generation of a certain man, it's going to be the son that is the prominent person. These are the generations of Terah, and Abraham is the prominent person. This is the account or generations of Isaac, and Jacob is the prominent person. Verse 20 says, Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel the Aramean from Padan Aram, and the sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. This is 2 men in a row whom God has caused to marry barren women, that he, God, might get the credit for the children, for the seed. He prayed to the Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies, twins, the babies jostled each other within her. They're fighting even in the womb. And she said, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. I would guess that would be to her husband. The Lord said to her, 2 nations, watch this carefully, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. 1 people will be stronger than the other people, and the older will serve the younger. Now that's never true of Esau and Jacob. Esau never serves Jacob, but it is true of the nations. The nation from Esau, Edom, will serve the nation from Jacob, Israel. And that's what he said. 2 nations, 2 people. 1 people will be stronger than the other people, and the older people will serve the younger people. That's prophecy, that's prediction. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red. His whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau, which means either hairy or red and hairy. After this, the other brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel as if he's trying to pull him back and come out first. So he was named Jacob, which literally means a supplanter, one who takes the place of another. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. So they've been married 20 years without children, and now they have twins. And the prediction was that they would both become nations, and that the nation that came from the older would serve the nation that came from the younger. And there's a prediction even in the color and the hairy, because Esau is going to be a man of the fields and a man that wants to be outdoors and a bloody person. And Jacob's going to be more the quiet person, his mother's favorite. But Jacob is trying to pull his brother back. He's trying to take his brother's place. Verse 27, the boys grew up. Now they become men. In boyhood, Jacob was trying to replace Esau. In manhood, he'll replace him. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, evidently was never able to go pursue it much, loved Esau. But Rebekah loved Jacob. That doesn't mean that they had no love for the other son. But here's favoritism. And anytime there's favoritism in a home, and it's known to exist, you're going to have trouble. Esau was loved by Isaac because he brought him the wild game that his soul desired. Jacob was loved by Rebekah because he was the quiet man of the house. Once, verse 29, once when Jacob was cooking some stew, literally it's just beans, lentils, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I am famished." That's why he's also called Edom, which means red. So he's called both hairy and red. Jacob says, "First, sell me your birthright." Now the birthright is the right to the double portion. If you've got 3 children, you divide your inheritance 4 ways. And the one with the right to the birthright gets 2/4, and the other get 1/4. If you have 2 children, as it is here, you divide your inheritance 3 ways. And the one with the birthright gets 2/3, and the one without the birthright gets 1/3. This fellow's given up 33 1/3%, 1/3 of all of his father's possession for a bowl of beans. Isn't that a stupid agreement? Isn't that a foolish thing? That's sort of like giving up eternal salvation for something this world would have to offer. Sort of foolish. He says, "First, sell me your birthright." Esau said, "Look, I'm about to die. What good is the birthright to me?" Is he about to die? No way. I mean, he can make it home and eat whatever's at home that his wife has prepared for him. But he is a worldly, lustful fellow. Got to have these beans right now. He says, "What good is the birthright to me if I die?" But Jacob said in verse 33, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. Finally, we get that word bean in there where it belongs. Some lentil stew. He ate and drank and then got up. So Esau despised his birthright. He sold his birthright. He sold out being the father's #1 son for a bowl of red beans. Now, I like red beans as much as anybody in the world likes red beans. but they're not they're not worth my birthright. They may be worth occasionally $1 or $2 or so, but they're never, ever going to be worth my birthright. Jacob has begun his supplanting work. He has stolen his brother's birthright. Now in chapter 27, turn over there. Chapter 27, he steals his blessing. Now the birthright is the double portion, but the blessing is the seed line being traced through you. You becoming the firstborn, the number one son, the one that supplants, or the one, through whom the family line is traced. He's going to supplant his brother there also. Chapter 27, beginning with verse 1. When Isaac was old, and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he's blind, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, My son, hear my answer. Isaac said, I'm now an old man, and I don't know the day of my death. He's going to live a long time yet, but he doesn't know it. Now then, get your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty, literally spicy, barbecue food I like, and bring it to me so that I may give you my blessing before I die. He knows Jacob is smart enough that if he dies without blessing Esau, Jacob will get the blessing too. Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, Look, I've overheard your father say to your brother Esau, Bring me some game and prepare me some spicy food to eat so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of God before I die. Now listen, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock, bring me 2 choice young goats, that I may prepare some spicy food for your father just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat so that he may give you the blessing before he dies. Now I've eaten barbecued goat and I've eaten barbecued deer, and I couldn't tell the difference between them, and I don't think blind Isaac could either. That's Rebekah's thought. But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, listen carefully, verse 11, But my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I'm a man with smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing. His mother said, let the curse fall on me. Just go do what I said. So he went out and he got the goats. He brought them in. Rebekah cooked the food just the way the father liked it, took the best clothes of Esau, put it on Jacob. Verse 16, she also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goat skins, Esau is one hairy guy. Jacob's wearing goat skin, and it's going to be like Esau's skin. And she handed her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread that she'd made. He went to his father and said, My father? Yes, my son, he answered. Who is it? Watch Jacob begin his lies in verse 19. Jacob said to his father, I'm Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Sit up and eat some of my game so you can give me your blessing. How'd you come so quickly? The Lord gave me success. The Lord blessed me. Brings the Lord into his life. Then Isaac said, Come here so I can touch you and see if you're really my son Esau or not. So Jacob came close to Isaac, who touched him and said, The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Esau was one hairy man. He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy, like those of his brother Esau. He said, Are you really my son Esau? He's still suspicious. He said, Yes, I am. He said, Bring me some of the game. He ate the game and he ate it. And he says, Come here, my son, so I can kiss you. So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him. He said, the smell of my son, like the smell of a field. May the Lord give you blessings. May nations serve you, and people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and make the sons of your mothers bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and may those who bless you be blessed. Isaac is fooled. And now Jacob has gotten the birthright with a bowl of beans, and the blessing with a bunch of lies. When Isaac had finished blessing him, Jacob had barely left his father's presence. Esau came in from hunting, prepared the spicy food, brought it to his father, Said, Father, sit up and eat. Said, who are you? Said, I'm your firstborn, Esau. Verse 33, Isaac trembled violently and said, who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it before you came, and I blessed him. Now watch this phrase. And indeed, verse 33, last part, and indeed he will be blessed. Isaac cannot repent and give Esau the blessing, for he's given it to Jacob. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out in a bitter cry, and he says, bless me now. Bless me too, my father. And he said, I can't. Your brother came deceitfully and took away your blessing. Esau, isn't he rightly named Jacob? Isn't he rightly named crook, supplanter? He has deceived me these 2 times. He's taken away my birthright, and now he's taken away my blessing. Have you reserved any blessing for me? I've made him Lord over you. I've made him Lord over your relatives. I've sustained him with bread and wine. So what can I possibly do for you? Do you not have one blessing for me, my father? Isaac shook his head and said, no. Your dwelling shall be away from the earth's riches, away from the dew of the heaven. I can't bless you. You will have to live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, he's not talking about Esau personally, he's talking about the nation that comes from him. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck. Esau held a grudge against Jacob. You can understand why. On your outline, we've seen that he stole the birthright and he stole the blessing. But now watch the anger and the jealousy and the wrath that Esau will have. Verse 41. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, the days of the mourning of my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. That's one way to get the birthright and the blessing back, isn't it? Just wait till the father dies, put a spear through Jacob's heart, then I've got the birthright and the blessing back. Rebekah's told that, though. When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, your brother Esau is consoling himself with the thought of killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back here. Why should I lose both of you in one day? Then Rebekah said to Isaac, she's got to figure out a way to get Jacob out of here. Then Rebekah said to Isaac, I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from the Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living. So she tricks Isaac into sending Jacob away. And you read of that in 28:1-9, and we're not going to read that, but it's a very simple thing. Isaac calls Jacob to him, and he's kind of glad to get rid of Jacob. He says, Jacob, your mother and I have decided that you need to go back to Laban's house and find for yourself a wife. And so Jacob leaves. And he comes to a place Abraham had lived 3 times. He comes to Bethel. He leaves Beersheba and he sets out for Haran, and he comes to Bethel, and it's time to spend the night, and he finds a rock for a pillow. And he lays down and he goes to sleep, has a dream. This is called, still today among Bible students, Jacob's dream, Jacob's ladder. And in this dream there's a ladder going up into heaven, and angels are going up on the ladder, and angels are coming down on the ladder, and the ladder ends in Jacob. Jacob is being told here simply, you are now the head of the house. I now recognize you. I now bless you. I will speak to you. That's angels coming down the ladder. I will hear your prayers. That's angels going up the ladder. When Jacob awoke and knew that he'd been appointed the patriarch, the father of the house, he said, this is an awesome place. This is the very house of God. And he named it Bethel. It had been called Bethel earlier just because that's what it was when Moses wrote the book. But it's now called the house of God because Jacob met God there. Early in the morning he gets up and he pours oil, sets up a pillar, a monument to this place, the house of God. Pours oil, consecrates it, and makes a vow. He says, if God be with me, and that if is subjunctive, since God's going to be with me. God had promised He would. If God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I'm taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear so that I return to my Father's house, then the Lord will be my God. And this stone which I've set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. The tithe belongs to the Lord. Abraham knew that in Melchizedek's presence, and Jacob knew that in the presence of God. He left a thief. God will teach him step by step the futility and the stupidity of getting by on one's wits rather than on faith. And the first lesson that he learns, leaving there, running for his life, he may think that God is not with him. And the very first thing that God tells him is, I am with you. I will be with you. I will sustain you where you go, and I'll bring you back here. Jacob says, great. You do that, and you will be my God, and I will bring the tenth back to you. Next lesson, we'll continue to learn of the lessons that God teaches Jacob the thief, that he might become Israel, the prince of God's house. Be with us then.